Okay, so last time in the previous video I discussed what a balanced chemical equation is and some steps to take in order to balance them. I give a few tips on how to go about it and a few things to avoid, like adding fractions of molecules in the equation in order to balance it. What we're going to do now is look at some common mistakes that are often made. Okay, so this is more things to bear in mind not to do, because a lot of people do try and do them, okay? So what we're doing now is looking at common mistakes. And to do this, I'm going to go through an example. It's burning methane. So in this example, it is CH4 plus O2 produces carbon dioxide and water. Okay, and we're going to go through balancing it, and I'm going to show you where the mistake is. How many carbons? We count how many carbons we have on both sides. We have 1. We count how much hydrogen we have. 4 hydrogen here. 2 here. And how much oxygen? We have 2 oxygen here. And we have 2 here. And we have 1 here. So that means we have 3 oxygen total on the right hand side. So if you wanted to balance this, you might see, well, we have the right amount of carbon already, but we have an imbalance of oxygen and hydrogen. And you might be tempted to think, well, what if I just do something like this? What if you just did this? H4O2. And then counting things up again, we have 4 hydrogen here and 2 oxygen here, meaning 4 oxygen in total, and then you could just put a 2 in front of that and think you're done. And what I've just done there is one of the most common mistakes I see people make. This is something that you definitely do not want to do. What I did to balance it there was change H2O into H4O2 in order to balance it out. Okay? And what I did there is not balancing an equation. What I just did there, changing the subscript numbers, the little numbers, changing these little numbers down here, instead of putting a number in front like this, doing that is not balancing an equation. What I've done is change what molecule I have written down, okay? So an H2O molecule looks something like this. You've got an oxygen and it's bonded to 2 hydrogens. And you could have 2 lots of those, couldn't you? You could have, so if I wrote 2H2O there, that would be the same as drawing these 2 molecules. But instead of drawing 2H2O, if I'd written H4O2, that's different because that's written as 1 molecule. What that is would be presumably something horrific like this, which doesn't really exist to my knowledge, and that's a completely different molecule. So writing something like H4O2 is not balancing an equation. Yes, you're changing how many atoms are in the chemical equation, but you're changing what the equation is of. Another example would be, if we go back to that example, we go CH4 methane plus O2 to produce CO2 and H2O. And counting it all up again, 1 carbon, 4 hydrogen, 2 hydrogen, 2 oxygen, 3 oxygen in total. A similar mistake would be to change the O2 to an O3, and that would change the amount of oxygen to 3 on both sides, and you could think, oh great, I've balanced how much oxygen we have. No, again, what you've done, going from writing O2 to O3, is O2 is one molecule. O2 is diatomic oxygen, that's what we breathe in, that's what is involved in burning methane. O3 is actually ozone, and it has a somewhat more complicated electronic structure, but for the sake of this, O3 is ozone, and that's a completely different molecule. So again, let me make this quick note. Changing the subscript numbers and that is things like H2O. The subscript numbers are things like that, the little 2 underneath the symbol for hydrogen. Doing that means you are changing the chemistry that you're describing. Do not do this.